Hello, everyone. Hi. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and the sock blank special has been so much fun, but I wanted to come on and unravel one more sock blank before this week is over. I have shown how many? 5, 6 different sock blank dyeing videos this week, plus some live streams, unraveling, bonus episodes, and tomorrow I even have just a bonus space dyeing video using some of the leftover dye from 2 of the other dyeing experiments. I didn't use up the dye and I didn't want to throw it out, so I dyed a skein of yarn, and that will come up early tomorrow morning. But I was mostly dyeing these sock blanks for backers of the Dye Pot Weekly Kickstarter campaign. But I dyed a bonus sock blank in the live stream where I folded a blank into, I guess I folded it into thirds and then in half again, and then I rolled it up into almost like a cinnamon bun shape. And then I slowly immersed the dry sock blank into some Wilton's Violet food coloring. And I used a lot of food coloring, maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon. And I don't remember off the top of my head how much vinegar was in the pot. But anyway, this is the result that we got. We have some really vibrant purples in addition to the blues and some pinks in this blank. And you can tell even where I added the rubber bands from these really thin spots of resist that are on the blank. And so I think that the whole thing is really cool. And I know that all of you have been wondering, what is this going to look like when we unravel it? And to tell you the truth, I'm wondering that a bit too. So the reason why we are all excited to unravel this sock blank, in case you're new to the sock blank series, these commercial sock blanks that I bought from Knit Picks contain 2 strands of fingering weight yarn. And they are knit together to form this blank. And I'm already a little tangled for some reason. Hold up. All right, so they are knit together to form this blank. So that way, however you dye it, you will end up with, what on earth? I'm like unraveling 2 rows at a time. Need to figure out what I'm doing here. This is not the way. Oh, okay, this is strange. Maybe I'm gonna have to go from the other end. Okay, but maybe we're okay now. Yeah, no, this is looping strange under the last stitch. I think I will have to go from the lighter to the darker end, and hopefully that'll work a bit better. I haven't struggled unraveling any of these blanks yet, so we will see how this goes. All right. Anyway, these are knit with 2 strands of yarn together to create identical, 2 identical 50-gram skeins of sock yarn. So that way you can either make identical socks, identical mittens, 2 identical pieces, or you can even use these 2 skeins to create a symmetrical shawl or scarf or something and actually have there be true symmetry. And so that is something that's really fun about these. Excuse me. So you can do whatever random pattern you want. And so the sock yarn in this blank, and here's like a nice little segment, is 50% superwash merino. Oh my goodness. 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It is the Stroll fingering weight yarn that I use in a lot of my videos. And sock blanks and other individual skeins of bare yarn are still 20% off for the month of December, so you can pick some up and dye along with me. My affiliate link is in the description, but you don't need to use my link to get the discount. It just, gives me a little credit for it. But I like these blanks. The other thing that I've talked about is that you can make your own blanks using a knitting machine. I mean, technically you could hand knit your own blanks as well, but that would be a lot of extra work. But this is the crank knitting machine that I have used and shown in some of the videos when I've done my homemade blanks. And maybe at the end I'll chat a little more about this crank machine. Yeah, the blank, I'm really, really excited with this blank. All right, so the way I'm going to unravel this blank is I am going to use my PVC pipe niddy noddy with a 2-foot section of pipe in the middle. So that way I can wrap one of the strands of yarn around one side, one of the strands around on the other side in kind of a loop. So not the typical way that you would wrap yarn around a niddy noddy. So if I wanted to make an 8-foot skein, I would kind of rotate it like that to wrap it around, but I want to instead create 2 4-foot skeins that will fit easily on a yarn swift. And I put a link at the beginning of the comments, and I'll add it into the comments of the video at the end of what I use to make these PVC pipe niddy noddies. But it's great because you can take it apart, put it back together, and get what you need really easily. So I like to start the unraveling by taking either end of the yarn and kind of inserting one end into the top of my niddy noddy. You could also tie it, or sometimes I'll use tape to secure it, but I find that this works nicely to just hold things in place so I don't get super tangled, even though I already kind of had a tangle at the beginning. I also want to point out that the yarns, when you're unraveling it, come out pretty crimped. This is, to be expected because we've essentially blocked our pre-knit fabric in the blank. But what I do after I've put the yarn on the niddy noddy is I actually will wet these skeins so that way the yarn will relax and it won't be super crimped when I take the skeins off the sock blank. And so, yeah, and then to unravel these, I literally will just kind of put my fingers in between the 2 strands, sort of like I'm going to do a long tail cast on, and just start wrapping it around the niddy noddy like so. And you can see that as the yarns come off, the spots of color are really identical. These commercial Knit Pick sock blanks are a flat knit piece. Oh, thank you. It's actually a dress. It's one of my favorites, and it's snowing, so I thought I wanted to feel summery. These sock blanks are knit flat versus in the round. I prefer, if I'm hand cranking a sock blank myself, I prefer to do it in the round just because it's a bit faster. But, oh, you guys look. Do you see those specks that are coming out? It's because not only was there resist from the way we folded this blank to dye it, but there's also resist, a little bit of resist within the individual stitches. And I've shown this in some of the other sock blanks. I actually did a recap of the last live unraveling, so that way you could see a closer look at the yarns and see these really cool light and dark patches that we get from the knit stitches. But unlike, sometimes I struggle a little bit to unravel my homemade blanks because things made with that knitting machine, sometimes a stitch will drop and you kind of have to finagle things to keep going. And so sometimes could be a little hard. I haven't made a double-stranded blank on my own yet. That's something I would like to do soon. Your videos are making me want to dye blanks so bad. You should. They're 20% off right now. So Stroll fingering yarn, and I think that they're raising the price of it because the price of one skein seemed to be different than I remember, but I normally buy it in 20 packs. So my knowledge of the cost per skein isn't great, but I think that at 15% off of the bulk discount, it's around between $6 and $7 normally. And I haven't looked at the bulk discounts are usually 15% off, but the full price for a sock blank is $19.99. So 20% off is like actually really substantial when you're looking at something that much. Now, I think I paid between $25 and $30 for my crank knitting machine. So if you want to do a lot of blanks and you think that it's something you would explore further, then it might be worth getting, you know, a kid's crank machine so you can create your own blanks. Oh, and I almost forgot. As I'm unraveling, I like to push the yarn out so that way I can see the progression in the gradient. But I just want to give a little peek of this yarn. Making sure I didn't twist myself up. Yeah, so, you know, it's really up to you. It took me, you know, a long time until recently for me to buy commercially wound sock blanks. Until I got these, all the sock blanks I've used in all my videos are things that I made myself. Oh, I do not know where blanks started and who started them. I don't think I even knew, like I hand knit maybe a 12 by 12 inch square once and then tie-dyed it with a tie-dye kit years ago. And back then I didn't know that blanks were a thing that existed. I was just like, oh, I have this pre-knit blank or this pre-knit fabric that I'm going to unravel. Let's dye it. And that was cool. And so then I knit one and I did another dyeing of it. And so when I discovered that sock blanks were something that existed, I was interested, but I don't knit a lot of socks. And so I was interested in applying dye to a whole skein of yarn this way. And then I went looking for a crank knitting machine. So this machine is really made, since it's for kids, it's made for like worsted weight yarn. I did bulky, Wool of the Andes bulky yarn on it once, and that was a long time ago, so I don't remember how hard it was. But I routinely do Wool of the Andes worsted weight yarn on this machine. And if you can do worsted weight, then you should be able to do 2 strands of fingering weight without much issue. I will also admit that I did just purchase the updated version of this machine. And I'll show them. So the way this machine has kind of the base like this, so it's at an angle, and it has a handle here for you to hold it. But the problem is that if you're trying to do this, like you're kind of, if you start cranking fast, you're like, it's really hard to hold it down from the side, and so then you're holding it in awkward ways and trying to keep the tension, like the tension bands down here. The newer model has feet at the bottom, so you can have it on a table and then have the blank coming out the bottom. So instead of, and I think it'll be nicer to just kind of hold it like so, and then be able to crank against the table. The other downside of these machines is that they are pretty loud. So if you're trying to watch a movie with someone else, it's not necessarily great. But I can make a blank out of the worsted weight yarn in, so I timed it. I don't remember if it was 21, 22 minutes or if it was a little longer. So it doesn't take that long. It did make my arm tired, and I realized that I didn't want to make enough homemade blanks to offer as a Kickstarter reward. But for my own personal use and dyeing experiments, it's totally worth it. I think at Wool to Dye For, they might sell some blanks that are made with a single skein, like that aren't doubly knit with 2 strands of yarn. They might sell one of them that is one. I don't remember. I know those exist. So depending on the kind of blank you're looking for, you might want to make sure you read the descriptions carefully. But here's another close-up of our super, super pretty yarn. But you can see that unraveling this is pretty easy. Wool to Dye For does sell single blanks. That's what I thought. And I believe also that you can buy their blanks in 5 packs. They might sell some of them in 5 packs versus a 10-pack. I have only dyed 1 skein of Wool to Dye For yarn at this point, and it took dye beautifully. I don't know why I've saved the other 2. I was able to get one of their sample 3-packs that got a random 3 different, well, I think it told me what 3 types of yarn that I would be able to try. And so that was really nice, and I enjoyed that. And I'd like to look at more of their yarns in the future. It's just hard to commit to a full bag when I haven't tried them myself. My current favorite activity in life is because of you. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're enjoying spinning. And I'm glad that some of you have been able to catch me live. I know it's hard when most of my live streams are in the middle of the day. Okay, so this is my 10-hour Afghan. And the free pattern, which, you know, isn't too much of a pattern because it's mostly seed stitch. The free pattern is on ChemKnits.com. If you search for 10-hour Afghan, you'll see this. And I even have a time log of when I was knitting it. But the first yarns I ever dyed, are in this blanket. So, yeah, I thought it would be fun to show. And at the end, I'll show you more. There are also like this red and some of the darker colors that you see are in, were commercially like bought colors. But it's 20% wool, 80% acrylic yarn. And I think I used, I forget if it was 6 or 8 strands of yarn at a time to knit it on size 50 needles in 2 panels that I stitched together. I had a lot of remnant yarn. So it was my first really big stash busting project, and it's huge and warm. Oh, my Kickstarter is actually complete. I did a Kickstarter campaign from September to October to launch a new series of dyeing videos. So all of these sock blank dyeing videos and the Dye Pot Weekly series are funded in part from the Kickstarter campaign. And so I'm really excited to ramp up my video production and share all this with you. So here we are now. Yeah, it was really, really exciting. And I also just want to show again just how close these, like the specks are to one another. They're shifted slightly because, you know, there might be a little more tension on one strand than the other, but the specks are just coming off in identical patterns, which is just really cool, especially when you see the level of, like, you know, when you look of the way the specks form over the stitches and stuff. And so it's just very exciting. And we're about to transition to the more heavily colored section. I haven't crossed streams or anything here. Do I steam out the kinks? Yeah, I sort of just spray, I wet block it, essentially. If I had a steamer, and if I trusted my iron not to, like, squirt ugly brown water all over it, I might use that as, just use steam, but I will just use a sprayer from my shower to wet the yarn, and then I just let it dry on the Niddy Noddy. I want to make some like hook weights from like a plastic hanger or something, so that way I can hang them up without having the Niddy Noddy kind of held up by the yarn. So I have 2 of these Niddy Noddies now that I made, and I know that I should make some more if I'm going to keep doing sock blanks. And then the other thing that sometimes the Niddy Noddies are also sometimes a rate limiting step for my spinning as well, because when I spin yarn, I'll wind it onto the Niddy Noddy and then wet it and let that dry before I remove it, so that way the twist can set and the fibers can relax a bit. But yay, I'm happy to provide distraction. I figured that the week right before Christmas was a great week to do the sock blank special. And oh, look at how like more frequent these specks are now. I thought that this would be a good week for the sock blank special because a lot of people might be busy with family, but sometimes when you're really busy with family, you could also use a break. Keith is actually with his family right now, hanging out with his brother and stuff, and you know, which I'm totally happy that he can have that time to have some literal bro time. And he was feeling bad, and I was like, well, I think I'm going to do a live stream anyway. And I normally don't get to do evening sessions because that's the time that we get together. So I'm teaching myself to knit, so it's nice to, yay! Yeah, I think that, well, as long as I don't start singing, I might be reasonably entertaining if you're knitting. Apologies for whenever I start singing. But yeah, learning to knit is pretty fun. It's funny, some of my first videos ever were because I was getting questions from how to do a certain technique, or even my sister-in-law asked me how to do some things, so then I would do it and film the technique to send to her and then just post it on YouTube as well. So I thought that that was pretty fun. So even though we have this like bigger dark patch, I think it's something that will show up like more of a gradient when you're knitting with it, but it's almost a little, like you can tell that the dark patch is getting, they're kind of pooling here on the Nitty Knotty, which is cool. So you can kind of tell that the dark patch is getting a bit more intense. Oh, I mean, I almost want to like hang some of these on my wall, like the Rainbow Specks from Dye Pot Weekly 14, the one that kicked off the sock blank. It was just so pretty. I think I need to figure out, I might want to get a shadow box and a bunch of mini skeins and make myself some yarn art. When did I start knitting? I don't know if this is to me or to you guys in the chat. I started knitting when I was 10 years old. When I was in 5th grade, we had, like, if there was a rainy day, my teacher would put up a sign-up sheet on a transparency and like pull our names on popsicle sticks out of a cup, and we each pick an activity we wanted to do for indoor recess. And one day she had 2 slots for Learn to Knit. And so my friend and I signed up, and then before we knew it, knitting had caught on, and the whole class, we would be knitting when like during, when the teacher or would be reading us a story. We read a lot of Goosebumps back then, if that dates me. And we knit these like thin headbands, not thick enough to be warm, but just to like wear around our heads. So it was like cast on in the round, knit like 10 or 20 rounds, and then cast off. And it would curl up, and we were collecting them in as many colors as possible. And so, yeah, that was fun. But I dyed my first yarn back then too. I don't remember what we used for the dye, and I think that the yarn got ruined in a flood that we had at my house. But we took a whole day off of lessons to dye some yarn, and we like wound it into skeins, and we hand painted, had a yellow base. I think we added like red and green on top of it or something. And yeah, that was really fun. So, and I know that I missed some things as I was doing this. Yeah. And, it looks like I've seen people say don't give up when it comes to knitting. So, you know, I learned when I was little, and I started and stopped many times over the years. It took me a long time to learn how to crochet. I started trying, and I think it was an election night because I wanted something to do. This was many, many years ago. Maybe it was even 2008. I wanted something to do as I was waiting for results to come in. And so I was trying to learn how to crochet, but my tension, I just couldn't get the tension right because it's different from knitting. And so I gave up. And then a few years later, I took up and I tried again. And the second time I was trying it, I really was able to make it work a bit better. And even spinning. The first time I tried spinning, I couldn't figure out how to draft, how to make it work. So I tried it, and then I stopped for like a year or so. Boxcar children books. You know, I think that I don't know if 4 is too young to read them. I mean, but we just started reading a chapter book to my eldest, and I'm excited to see if I have any boxcar books that my mom just is bringing me all my childhood boxes. So I'm curious if there's boxcar children books in there. And all right, you guys want to know something really embarrassing about me? I have a complete collection of the Sweet Valley High series. Yeah, not university, not middle school, not kids, but Sweet Valley High from like book 1 all the way until the awful earthquake ending before senior year. And so those are in in a couple of my boxes, I guess, that I'm about to get. So yeah, I'm sure, I don't know what would happen if I tried to read one of them now, but I then collected all of them. I used eBay to help me get the last few, or like a bunch, fill in all the gaps. And then I even have like a box of like some extra ones. No, it was a slightly embarrassing series. It's kind of like soap opera-y. They're making a movie. I know they had a TV series back when I was younger, but no, I didn't know they're making a movie. I don't know how I feel about that, because the books are very, like, there's a lot of 80s type stuff. Yeah, very guilty pleasure. Thinking of all these books is making me fun. But, I'm so, I love the chatter. It's hard. So comments come up fast on the screen, but I have my laptop behind me so I can check. But things are going by quickly. So if I've missed a question, just ask again and let me know. So when you get to the end of the sock blank, it starts getting not harder necessarily, but it gets a little more like it doesn't just stay on the couch. So it's a little more likely to get tangled at this point. And as you saw, I had trouble getting this one started. And so if like that happens and you're trying to unravel from one end and it's getting stuck or something, just go to the other end. Because you can unravel from either. And technically, you could, if you wanted to hang on to your, you really liked what you dyed and you wanted to keep it as like a blank, you could graft the two ends together with a Kitchener stitch and then make a cowl or something out of the blank. So technically you don't have to unravel it. But, I mean, isn't it worth it? Wire wrapping pendants. That sounds cool. Yeah, last minute presents. All the things I wanted to knit. Like, remember when I had this hat for my youngest that I showed on a live stream? Well, guess where I still am? Like, I've been so slow with my knitting this winter that I haven't decided if I'm gonna wrap up the yarn I got for a project that my sister-in-law asked for, a like cowl hood, which I made one for Lucas and she liked it, and so she asked me to make her one. And she's very knit-worthy. She loves and wears the stuff that I make her, but I just didn't have time. So I now need to figure out if that's what I should do for next year. Or if I should just give her the yarn as like an IOU. What will I do with this yarn? So that I haven't decided yet. I don't know. This one is not yet spoken for. A lot of the, there we go. A lot of the yarns that are in my, so since I'm having trouble like just keeping the tension on this, I'm unwinding a bit by hand, wrapping it around and then unwinding more. But, I mean, look at that. Just how matched they are. Yeah, so this one is currently part of my stash. But I don't know if it's something that I will knit up or if it will become part of a future de-stash sale or something in the future. Put the end under my foot, but then it's on my foot. Yes, in theory, if you're doing your own, definitely you can put it under your foot. But there's also a reason why you can only see my couch right now. The let's just say today was a school day and my children were especially rambunctious when we got home. How many yards is a blank? All right, so I think I was just writing some labels. I think 100 grams of stroll fingering is 462 yards. So the blank is probably 231 yards. And this is not normally a figure I would know offhand, but I was just making labels for some of the other skeins that I wound. So off the top of my head, that's what I think these ones are. But I haven't actually weighed any of the blanks to check to see that they actually weigh as much as they're supposed to. I really like to weigh. Oh, cool. So wherever I was kinked, that coming from the other end, that undid itself nicely. I like to weigh yarn for projects because since a skein of yarn or a ball of yarn can have, 5% variability, like up or down, I think that 10%, within 10% is like the rule for the industry. I forget. But since there can be that much variability, and if you're making a big project that makes a big deal, I like to weigh my yarn at the beginning and end of a project to figure out how many yards I used. So there definitely is some breaking in here, and I'll show that in a second. But one of the reasons why it's way more purple than some of my other things is because I used a lot of dye, and that dye mostly had access to a little bit of the yarn. So the blues in here are very, very pale because it was hard for the dye to get there. And okay, these are the last two. And where is, I thought I had a bit, here we go, a bit of tape. Oh no, come back. Just tape these ends down. Hold on. And so, yeah, I think that when using like a really lot of dye, you are less, you're more likely to see less breaking. Does that even have any stick to it left? Barely. Okay. I might need to tie that a bit. But, so I don't know if the pale blue is barely reading through. There are definitely sections that are more pink, and maybe I'll have to do a recap video for this. There's some sections that have a lot more pink than others, and other sections that have more blue, and especially in some of the specs, you can kind of see it. But from here, you can kind of see the gradient that we have going on from like less purple to more purple as we go down. So in one of the videos, I used a twisted hank of yarn. So I had the skein and I twisted it up and I dyed that in Wilton's Violet, a lot of Wilton's Violet. And I didn't see as much breaking as I had expected there as well. And it was probably because I used so much food coloring that the reds absorbed to the outside. And then the blue had a lot of access to the outside for a while. So it mostly bound there as well. Do I make mini skeins? Sometimes, yeah. Do you mean do I make mini skeins and then dye them? Or do I turn some of my yarn into mini skeins? Because sometimes the answer is both. A lot of my earlier videos, I would dye a mini skein of yarn, and mainly because I was cheap and I wasn't making a lot of money off of the videos yet, and so it was hard to justify dyeing an entire skein of yarn in a video. Turn into. Yes, I often will turn, for the Kickstarter campaign, every backer of my Kickstarter campaign who was getting shipped a physical reward is receiving a mini skein from one of my dyeing videos. And actually, I'll add the link. I have a post with those mini skeins on my website. And here it is. And I even link to the videos that they came from. All right, I just dropped that link into the comments. Do I use the new liquid kit for this? I have started using the new liquid kit, and I used it in one of the sock blank dyeing videos. The first video where I dyed using the Wilton Color Right color performance system, the first time I ever used that video is going to come out on Tuesday, where I dye a holiday themed skein of yarn. And I like the concentrated color, but I don't think that there's a purple in the kit, but there's the blues and reds so that you can mix your own. I was a little bummed. So there's 3 different reds, blue, so 3 reds, blue, yellow, orange, brown, and black. Those are the 8 colors in the new system. Yeah, the kit's are pretty expensive, but I got it, I think, with a 40 or 50% off coupon at Michael's. I also got the color mist sprays on, I think I may have had a 40% off my whole purchase coupon or something. Is there magenta in it? There's pink, which is very like hot pink. There is crimson, which is so there's pink, which is red number 3. There's crimson, which is red number 40. And then there's red, which is a mixture of the 2. Oh. I'm sorry if I missed your question. I think, did you leave a comment on a video earlier? I haven't, yeah, you left a comment on a video earlier that I haven't replied to yet. I'm sorry, Liz. So I have thought about doing some lengthwise striped sock yarn. And actually, I was going to comment that this one isn't quite lengthwise striped sock yarn, but a lot of the colorations did kind of go in a vertical manner. And so after I filmed this, I was going to point you to this video. I did also dye a grid one, which isn't quite lengthwise. I don't have one in the series, but that is something that I want to do so then I can unravel it in the future. I'm sorry, things go across the phone pretty quickly, so it's easy for me to miss comments. But yeah, I personally I am a really big fan of short bursts of color. So I would like to explore vertical stripes a lot. With these, and of course I didn't bring down a bare blank. With these blanks, especially since they're knit flat, I think if you were going to do vertical stripes, the pattern of how it would go back and forth between the color progression would be really cool looking. I thought, I've also thought about loosely rolling up a blank, sort of like I did this, but without the folds, and then slowly like submerging it into a color that breaks. And so you'll see breaks towards the center, but also from one end to the other. And I think that would be really cool. Ooh, you got a lengthwise sock blank and you got unintentional stripes because the colors pooled the way that you were knitting. Color pooling, that is really awesome. Color pooling is intentional color pooling is a gorgeous art. I love seeing the people that figure out the mathematics and make like a really cool Argyle type print based on, a regular repeat of a variegated yarn. Some of the yarns that I dye aren't quite regular, that like it would work for a while and then maybe stop working. But color pooling can either be really awesome or it can drive me a little, I can feel a little obsessive about it, of like wanting the colors to like not line up as I'm knitting. And so, yeah, I will say, you guys, I have had so much fun with the sock blank special that I am already starting to plan my next sock blank series. And I'm not sure exactly when it'll take place. I would like to have finished filming all of the rest of the Kickstarter dyeing, the Kickstarter sponsored Dye Pot Weekly videos before I do that. But I think that no promises, but maybe in February, I would be able to do Sock Blank Special Part 2. And so I think that that would be fun. And so I think some other ideas people have asked for are stamping. Stamping and stenciling have been very popular requests. I'd like to write some kind of like hidden message to Unravel. Vertical stripes is definitely on my list, and also doing horizontal stripes that I get to, hand-painted horizontal stripes I get to unravel. Whoa, okay, you guys are going fast. Let me see. My husband watched me unravel the ChemKnits blank, and he was confused. Oh, yeah, so technically someone could make the words pop up again. It would just, like, I think it would pretty much have to be the same gauge. Or... yeah, it would pretty much have to be the same gauge. Oh, so the okay, so I still haven't looked into this gar gum to keep colors from bleeding. But you know what I realized from the self-striping blank? When I used the sponge brush, the colors really didn't bleed that much. When I used the squeeze bottles, the colors spread and bled a bit. But I think that, and I'd like to try with maybe like a cookie cutter or something and one of the sponge brushes to see if I could get, and you know, I'd use that as my stencil at first, but I think that like maybe the colors might not spread that much because I think that the overall amount of liquid transferred wasn't that much. So I'm really curious to see how that is. So you need good tension and knowledge of how it would be a fun way to send a secret message. Well, okay, so, I mean, I think that someone wouldn't be able to necessarily read the secret message in the socks, but I think that there would be something fun about taking a sock blank, writing like a love, like if you're going to make a sock blank for your partner, writing like a little love note to them and then unraveling it and knitting it. And so you just have like a random pattern on the socks. But you would know and your partner would know that there was a message that was written into the yarn. And so, like, and even with like, you could do a quote or song lyrics or something. And so it's just kind of like a inside, not necessarily joke, but just like an inside thing between you and then, or even, you know, if you write a note to yourself and then turn it into socks. Yeah, you take a picture and put it on a card. Yeah, subliminal socks. Or, you know, if you're mad at someone, you could like put a little joke in there before you unravel it. And you would know, but they wouldn't know. Yeah, daily affirmation sock blanks would be really, really nice. So love your local store cleared out of them. So I haven't tried with dyeing yarn one of the finger pump mist bottles, like a Misto. That's something I want to try. And I've been looking into airbrush things, and some of you have shared some airbrush kits. But I don't really want to spend $50. Like if I'm going to spend $50 on a kit and then have to buy the special dyes, I may as well use maybe the color mist sprays for a while. So Crayola has an airbrush kit, and they have special markers that you use in it. But I can't tell if there's a way to add like your own container to it. So that way I could, instead of using Crayola markers, I could use food coloring. So I don't know if there's something like pretty accessible like that. I know that there's kids airbrush kits out there that would be way less expensive than like a chef's airbrush kit. But maybe this is one of the things that, you know, it's an idea that I'm still working through. Because if I was going to, yeah, I think that those kits probably would only let me use Crayola. Oh gosh, yeah, to dye. So dyeing socks dyeing yarn to get a pattern when you knit with it is a total art. I've seen a dyer who sells these yarns that when you knit them, you can get little watermelons or Santas or bats and these little things if you use the exact right gauge. And that is unbelievable and something that, you know, I want to look into. And maybe I could do something that I could do watermelon stripes, I think. Because, you know, we could do like, you know, a green stripe and then red with black specks. You know, I could make something feel watermelon-y, but I don't think I'd be able to have like perfect little triangle watermelons show up. I don't have, and sheep. That's like a dream. But I don't know if people who are selling those yarns would be willing to share the technique because, you know, they make their money from selling them. Okay, so I see that, and I've missed part of the UK food coloring discussion that's going on in the chat. I know that some people in Europe have mentioned that they've had trouble finding Wilton food colorings with the artificial food dye molecules because it seems like a lot of the food colorings contain other like colored compounds, but compounds that are not actually going to dye your yarn very well. Maybe you'd get a brown or something. And so, yeah, and Liz, I don't know where you are located. Yeah, so if you're looking, like, one place to start, and I guess Kool-Aid isn't a thing over there, and I don't know, so my brother and sister-in-law live in the UK, and when my sister-in-law comes back from her hiking trip, I plan to talk to her about, like, what kinds of colors you guys have over there in the supermarket. I know that my brother-in-law likes to buy Mio and stuff when he's over here, because that's something that, a concentrated, like, sports drink beverage that I guess he can't get across the pond. And so I just don't know, like, I don't know if cordials, the concentrated cordials would be a place to look for food coloring, or if those contain more natural colors. So yeah, but I haven't been to the UK. Has it been? No, it hasn't been 10 years. It's been maybe, but certainly over 6 years since I've been. I see. So it's just the colors that seem to be lacking. I mean, hey, one thing you could try, I've been having a lot of success with colored sprinkles. And so that's been pretty fun. Yeah, so, yeah, so unfortunately, I should have thought and, like, asked my brother, well, they wouldn't really be able to bring over beverages, but I should have asked them to bring some UK food coloring to me on this trip, but I don't know if they're going to be getting back to the States, for a while, which makes me sad because I like to see them. Yeah, so it's hard, but I am going to be transitioning into using more, well, I'm still going to do food coloring because I know a lot of you really love it, and I mean, I love it too, but I'm also in January going to start using some Jacquard acid dyes. And so, but the nice thing about that is that the techniques that I do with the Jacquard acid dyes are techniques that we do with food coloring. So the acid dyes, you know, we would use vinegar or citric acid. And so all these things, the one difference might be the way colors break. But I think the first thing I want to do is a dip dyeing into violet, Jacquard violet, and then see what happens. I do have some acid colors that I know break because people have told me that they do. So that is something we can explore there as well. But I'm excited to be able to have something to contrast with the food coloring based dyes. In Sweet Valley High colors, aren't there colors red and white? Yeah, so the first videos with, I have Dye Pot Weekly videos filmed through the end of January. So I think the beginning of February is the soonest that the first acid dye videos will start coming out. But I hope to start playing with those pretty early on. Oh, a picture of the book covers. That's more drawing than I can handle. But oh yeah, let me get some things to show you guys. Since you are all hanging out with me so long, I figured I'll show you some new things that came in the mail today. All right, I have some new toys. The unicorns, okay, but the unicorns were Sweet Valley High Middle School. The unicorns wasn't a club that existed in the high school series. And so that's not, I don't think I have any of the middle school books, but I mean, this is pretty purple. Yeah, so I'm not very good at drawing. So some of the, I saw a really cool sock like on Etsy that looked like someone wearing a blazer and a tie. And so some of those are really cool. And something like that is a little bit beyond my ability. But I am going to attempt some stenciling and things with, first I'd start with the straight icing color because that's pretty thick. And we'll see how much it bleeds. And we'll see then if I need to do more research into like thickening agents as well. You guys are awesome. Oh yes, I have masks. I do have some face masks to use for when mixing the powdered acid dyes. Technically one should probably also wear a mask when playing with a lot of food coloring, not food coloring, Kool-Aid, because inhaling fine powders is just not a good thing for your lungs anyway. But I do have a face mask, and when I I'll do a video on making the stock solutions before the first dyeing episode, and so then I'll talk a little bit about that. All right, so now I want to show some goodies that I just picked up. So the first, this arrived in the mail today. I got these off of Amazon, and okay, I'm not holding them so I can see. You can see what these are. These are powdered food coloring, which is something that comes in handy, I think, for like people who make candy and stuff, because you don't want to add any liquid to it. It would like affect the consistency. And so, it says ultimate in strength and versatility, used in chocolate, dry mixes, and many other applications where water is prohibited. Used sparingly as powdered colors are extremely concentrated and may stain clothing, hands, or mouth, which means they will stain yarn great. And so, yeah, I think that for those of you that don't have access to Kool-Aid and some other things, that maybe like mixing these with some salt or something to that way like kind of help it disperse a bit. This is a way to do some powdered speckling like I did in the Kool-Aid video. So I plan to play with these and some of the Wilton like dust food coloring at some point in the future. Yes, lungs are important. Oh my goodness. Thanks, Julia. Yeah, I'll chat with you. All right. Another thing I got, I've got some more videos with tie-dye kits coming up on yarn. And when I saw these, they look like highlighters, but they are tie-dye pens. And so maybe this is something that I need to use in Sock Blink Special number 2. Because we could do something kind of cool with them. I mean, it says to set the heat with ironing, but I would think that I could steam it in my pot and that would be do just as well. But there's some like examples of pictures that people draw with them on the back. And not that I can draw that well or anything. And actually, I mean, these look like maybe they're kind of old or something, because look at how low the water levels are in the pens. But anyway, it's something I thought would be fun to try. It had been sitting in like my idea list for a while, and I decided, why not? If I have it, then I can try it. And but I also have food coloring markers that are really meant for drawing on cookies. And so I don't know if those will work well on wet yarn, but that's something else that I have that I think would be fun to try on a sock blank. Because at first I thought, oh, I could use these markers to make like really tiny specks. I'm like, it would not be very fun to literally hand draw all of these specks onto yarn. That would take a while, but you could certainly write on something. And ooh, that video quality went down for a minute. Time for bed. All right, good night. Thanks for joining in. All right, and now speaking of tie-dye, ooh, you could do really straight, thin lines. Ooh, that would be cool. Have a great evening. So I have a natural dyeing kit that I have, and I'm waiting to use. I'm waiting for it to get warmer out. I think I want to use some of that outside, just because yeah, I think I might want to do some of that outside, or at least some of the mixing of the powders outside, just, out of I plan to mix a lot, I'm going to let myself freeze to mix some of the jacquard acid dyes when I'm outside. Yeah, wait, isn't it 2 a.m. in the UK? Oh, thank you for tuning in. All right, but I did get this. So Tulip has a natural tie-dye kit. It's 3-in-1, so everything that you need is already in the bottles. You just have to add water and then tie-dye. And so it's got, some of these natural dyes. Some of these are in the other kit that I have, some aren't. But I thought it was cool that there were some of these natural dyes that dye fabric extremely well. Like these ones work really, 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 really well on fabric. And I thought it'd be really fun to try these with yarn. And especially because this is such an accessible kit and way more affordable than the other natural dye kit that I got. You can also find, I didn't buy it yet, but I thought it would be fun to get a natural food coloring kit, and show how well or unwell that works for dyeing yarn. I mean, using saffron, some spices would work great for dyeing yarn. But if you were using them maybe it would work not as well as a food coloring because it would add too much flavor and you wouldn't necessarily want some of these spices in your cake. Some of them could be really good in a cake, but maybe not a birthday cake you're trying to turn unicorn colors or something. Yeah. Oh, you guys are awesome for tuning in. And so those are the 3 new toys that I picked up because I was like, oh, I should get some other things because then they're here and I can start planning out some of the Dye Pot Weekly episodes for next year. And I forgot. I was going to talk a little more about my blanket. Okay. So, and I cannot honestly remember what the first color was that I dyed in here. But I was making a fisherman's sampler Afghan to learn how to do cables. And I thought I might do 30 squares, but I was kind of over it by the time I did. The book I had you do 20 squares. I was sort of over it by the time I got to 40. And I was like, what am I going to do with all this white yarn? It's Lion Brand Woolies yarn. And so I started dyeing it. And so in this section, this section right here, I did the whole blanket is knit with at least 2 strands of, or maybe was it 4 strands of white that I had the whole time? Maybe it was at least 2 strands. But so in this section, I dyed the green, gray. I think the gray was probably grape Kool-Aid. The green, gray, yellow, and blue with Kool-Aid, most likely. Some of these may also have had food coloring in them. Mm-hmm. There's some variegated colors that I did in here as well. But yeah, a lot of these in this section were hand dyed as well. And so the colors look pastel, in part because they're mixed with white, in part because they are legitimately pastel. These yarns that I were dyeing were only 20% wool, 80% acrylic. And, but it was, you know, a nice way to use the yarns. But also, this blanket is old. It's years and years old, and it's been out in my living room for years. Like, you can see that it's gotten a lot of love. Even these washable wool blends are starting to like stick together because it's been washed and all these other things. And color stays in it. And what's kind of cool about dyeing these yarns with a lot of acrylic is that the fibers look kind of heathered almost. Like, I don't think I'll be able to get close enough for you to see. And it's the light's right there, so it's getting a little washed out. But yeah, this blanket is well loved. We like to like curl up and like stick our fingers through it. And it only took me 10 hours to knit this nice, huge blanket. Now, this was 10 hours of knitting, not 10 hours start to finish. I kept a time log and I ran out of yarn at one point and I had to order some other colors, some bare yarn to dye and some additional colors. Because yeah, I ran out. But I think that when I look back at the original colors, I'm not sure how much it's faded, even being here in my living room. Greener shades. Yeah, I've heard good things about that. I decided to start with jacquard, mainly because I think it's a little more accessible. I've seen it in not big box craft stores, but like more art supply type stores for like art students and stuff. There was one in downtown Evanston, and I would look at them and think about the jacquard dyes and then not do anything with it. But I do plan to test out different brands at some point. I just didn't want to overload myself with a bunch of dye until like I started to go through some more of it. I picked up some Dharma dyes, acid dyes, because I had some colors that were recommended specifically for their breaking ability. And so I think I have an unboxing of all those colors in another video. Excuse me. I think my soda. Oh, wow. Anyway. Thank you guys for joining me for another live unraveling. I keep saying like Ravelry. Unraveling of the sock yarns, the sock blanks. And so again, sock blanks are 20% off right now at Knit Picks. And you don't need to use my affiliate link to get the discount, but it is there in the description and I'll add it to the comments on the replay. And but other individual skeins of bare yarn are also 20% off. And so it's awesome and a great time. And I am a stash enabler, and I think that you should all pick up bare yarns, even from wherever you get it, and then try some dyeing adventures at home. It is so much fun. And yeah, and then I love it when you guys share your own experiments with me, because like I feel like you're telling me things that I should try and we learn together. You got jacquard black because Wilton's wasn't really working. Ooh, cool. Yep. Oh, you sold your purple experiment to charity? That's really awesome. I have donated some of the yarns, some of my yarns in the past. But, and I used to do a lot more knitting for charity, but I haven't had very much knitting time lately. And that's been sad. Oh, but this whole thing and interacting with all of you is just really so much fun, and it's so inspiring. And because when you ask me questions, if I don't really know the answer, I want to try to find out. And so then I get more ideas for more videos, and then you get more videos to watch, and it's just kind of like a very positive cycle that we have going on here. But I just think that this is absolutely gorgeous. And I probably will do I don't know if I will do it before the end of the year, but I will probably do a recap so that way someone can see the like before and after of this blank without having to watch the entire live stream. Even though, I mean, this is a lot of fun. I love you guys. But I know that watching a live stream when you want the answer, I mean, waiting however long it took me to unwind this is a pretty long time. But I will wet this so that way the twist can relax. And but yeah, so I don't know if I would be able to do the recap before the end of the year. With the holidays, things are going to get kind of busy. But there are going to be a lot of new episodes on the channel. At least, how many weeks are left in the year? I think that there's at least 2. Every Tuesday, there's a new video. And I think every Friday for the rest of the year. I haven't filmed Friday videos for January yet. So there might be a bit of a lag in there, but I am still going to be bringing you a lot of awesome content in 2018, and that is my resolution. I'm so glad that you enjoy the show. Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun just interacting with all of you, so it's nice that someone finds it enjoyable, because otherwise then I'm just, all right, so I was watching Jurassic Park earlier. Otherwise I'd just be sitting in a room and talking to myself. And that's not the quote, but given that a lot of what I do is in a room talking to myself, and Jurassic Park's my favorite movie, I think that that's amusing. Thank you. Thank you so much to all of you who tuned in. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I hope that you all have a fantastic new year, and that your evenings are filled with warmth and fibers and, maybe some fun color. And so, with a new year and a new resolution, it's a good time to think about trying to learn a new technique. I know that I'm going to try a lot next year, and so you should totally try them along with me, and we can see all the beautiful colors that we can create. I will see you guys soon, and I'll be around in the comment sections and stuff, so I won't disappear entirely for the rest of the year. Good night, everyone!